It was supposed to be a quiet weekend getaway in the mountains. Just me, my wife, and the peaceful silence of our cabin retreat. No city noise, no flashing lights, and definitely no drama. But the moment we turned onto the final stretch of gravel road leading up to our cabin, everything changed. Right there, blocking my own driveway, were two SUV-style security trucks with HOA patrol logos slapped on the doors like they meant business. One guy in a vest stood in the middle of the road with his arms crossed, looking like he'd been waiting for this moment all day. At first, I thought it was some sort of road work or maybe a neighbor's emergency. But no, it was about a fine. A $69 violation for what they claimed was an unapproved satellite dish on the side of my cabin. No warnings, no notice. Just a full-blown blockade and two self-declared HOA cops demanding payment right then and there. If I wanted to access my own property, my wife was already pulling out her phone to record. Sensing things could go sideways fast, Attainly asked to see their supervisor, maybe someone with actual authority. But the lead guy just smirked and said, "We are the authority here." That's when it really clicked. These guys had no clue who they were dealing with. You see, I'm not just a random homeowner. I'm the chief of police back in our city. And while I was off duty that day, I know every inch of the law they were pretending to enforce. I kept my cool, but inside, I was already one step ahead. So what happened next? Let's just say things didn't go the way these so-called HOA enforcers thought they would. And it all unfolded faster than they could blink. I stayed in the car a moment longer, watching these guys puff their chests like they were starring in some low-budget reality show. One of them even had aviator sunglasses on, cloudy weather and all. I stepped out calmly, still in jeans and a hoodie. Nothing that screamed law enforcement. That's how I preferred it. I didn't want to flex anything just yet. My wife gave me a look, the kind that said, "Don't lose it." She knows I don't take kindly to intimidation, especially when it's baseless and aimed at families just trying to enjoy their weekend. The guy with the clipboard stepped forward, holding it like it was a badge. "You're not going any farther until you settle this fine. It's policy," he said, flipping to a page that looked like a copied form with scribbled notes. I asked for documentation, a proper citation, anything showing this wasn't just made up. He pointed to a blurry phone photo of what looked like my cabin's side wall, where apparently a small satellite dish had been attached 2 years ago for weather alerts. No less now. Here's the thing. That dish, it was approved by the HOA themselves. Had the signed permit in my email, timestamped PDF and all. But none of that mattered to them. They said their records didn't reflect any such approval, and until it was resolved, they'd be holding my access. The whole situation felt off. HOA patrol cars, blocking driveways, demanding immediate payments on the spot like some parking ticket gone wild. This wasn't standard procedure, not even close. I could tell right away something was wrong with how these guys were operating. I started to wonder who gave them this kind of power in the first place, but I still hadn't told them who I was, and that made all the difference. I asked them again, calmly this time, "Can I get the name of your HOA supervisor or board president?" The taller guy, he hadn't said a word till now, just shrugged and said, "You can file a complaint online." Then he actually stepped closer, as if trying to intimidate me, and added, "But first, pay the $69. Rules are rules." It was starting to feel less like a fine and more like a shakedown. My wife was still filming quietly, her phone angled, just enough to catch their faces and vehicles without drawing too much attention. Meanwhile, my neighbor Rick, a retired firefighter, came walking down the dirt trail from his property. He looked surprised to see the blockade. "They're pulling this on you too?" he asked. Apparently, I wasn't the only one. Over the past few weeks, several homeowners had been stopped or fined for made-up violations, some even warned about. Suspensions of property privileges. Whatever that meant. Rick said it started right after the HOA hired a new security subcontractor. A group no one voted on, run by a company with no online reviews or public contact info. That alone raised red flags for me. I asked one of the patrol guys what company they worked for. He just repeated, "We're contracted by the HOA to enforce property codes." But when I pressed for a business card or ID, he clammed up. That's when I noticed the patches on their vests didn't even match one said community enforcement unit. The other just had initials stitched in. Nothing looked official. Inside, my instincts were going off. Something wasn't right. I'd dealt with fraud rings and impersonators before in my line of work. And this was starting to smell like something deeper than a simple fine. But until I revealed who I really was, I had to keep playing it smart. Let them keep talking. Let them think they had control. I could feel the tension thick in the air as I stepped back toward my truck, pretending to give up the argument. But really, I was pulling up the HOA bylaws from the official website on my phone. I knew most of them by heart already, especially the part that said no third party. Security force could detain or block a homeowner from accessing their own property without written approval from the board and legal documentation. These guys had neither. I scrolled and took screenshots, just in case this turned into something more serious. My wife kept recording discreetly, her camera catching every word, every move. Rick stayed nearby, watching quietly but ready to step in if needed. He had that same uneasy feeling I did. We weren't dealing with a typical HOA power trip. This was starting to look like a rogue operation, and they were pushing the limits to see how far they could go. I kept my tone level and asked again for a supervisor, even tossed out a question about insurance liability if they kept blocking my driveway. That got their attention. The one with the patch that said CEU walked back to his vehicle and started talking on a handheld radio, a standard one either. Looked like a cheap off-brand walkie. Then things escalated. The guy at the front stepped closer to my wife, telling her to stop recording or they'd have to take action. That was it. I took one slow step forward, my badge still hidden, my tone still calm. What kind of action? Exactly? I asked, locking eyes with him. He hesitated just for a second, but it was enough to confirm what I suspected. These weren't just overzealous HOA workers. They were impersonating authority they didn't actually have, and now they were towing a line they couldn't afford to cross. But I still hadn't played my card, and the moment I did, everything would change, just as I was about to reveal my badge. Thinking that would be the turning point, something unexpected happened. A third vehicle rolled up. It wasn't marked with any HOA logo, just a plain black SUV with tinted windows. The patrol guys suddenly straightened up like soldiers at inspection. One of them whispered, "That's the guy." I stood still, watching carefully as the SUV door opened and out stepped a man in a slick jacket. No name tag, no visible ID, just a confident swagger and a clipboard of his own. He looked me up and down, then smiled like he already knew everything. He introduced himself as Mr. Carr, said he was a consultant working with the HOA board directly. But there was no record of him in any of the board's meeting notes I had reviewed in past emails. I asked where his authority came from. He responded vaguely, tossing out terms like emergency property code enforcement and temporary administrative orders. Nothing he said made legal sense, but it sounded just official enough to confuse someone who didn't know the law. That's when I knew they were using technical-sounding language to intimidate residents into paying bogus fines. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. Mr. Carr handed me a sealed envelope and said, "You've officially been flagged for known compliance and subject to further penalties, including suspension of property access." My name was typed cleanly on the front. How did they know I'd be here today? I hadn't told the HOA I was coming. Our plans were last minute. No one. But my wife and our neighbor even knew. That's when it hit me, someone inside the HOA must have tipped them off. Someone on the board was involved, feeding them information and letting them operate like a private militia. Now this wasn't just about a fine or a blocked driveway. This was coordinated, and if someone was watching us this closely, what else were they planning? I took the envelope slowly, eyes locked with Mr. Carr, then glanced down at the seal. It wasn't official, just a printed sticker made to look like something legal. At that point, I'd had enough. I calmly reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge, holding it up so there was no misunderstanding. "Chief Daniels," I said firmly. "City Police. You're going to want to explain yourself very carefully." The change in their faces was instant. The smug confidence melted away, and that fake authority tone vanished like smoke. Mr. Carr took a step back, stammering about miscommunication and just doing his job. One of the patrol guys started mumbling that they were just following orders. I asked again who gave those orders, and this time the truth started to spill. Turns out the HOA board president, someone I'd never even seen at a community meeting, had quietly hired the security company through a side agreement, bypassing the board vote entirely. And Carr, he wasn't with any enforcement agency. He was a contractor from a collections company operating in a legal gray area. Pretending to be something he wasn't, I made a few quick calls, looping in the local sheriff and the county code enforcement office. Within minutes, backup arrived. The patrol vehicles were asked to leave immediately, and Mr. Carr was questioned on the spot. The real HOA board members were notified, and the outrage spread fast once word got out about the intimidation tactics and fake fines. But just when I thought it was all over, one of the deputies handed me something odd. A second envelope found. Inside Carr's SUV, it had a list of names: mine, Rick's, a few other neighbors, and next to each one was a status: targeted for pressure, pending payment, and worse, escalate if resistant. That's when I realized this wasn't just a one-time stunt. It was part of something much bigger, and it might not be over yet. Over the next few days, everything unraveled. The board president was called into an emergency HOA meeting where he, under pressure and undeniable evidence, he admitted to authorizing the private contractor without proper approval. Turns out he'd been getting kickbacks for every fine collected. And the HOA cops were part of a broader scheme targeting vacation homeowners who didn't show up often. With help from local law enforcement and a few good neighbors like Rick, we gathered witness statements, recordings, and documents. The case was turned over to the county for further investigation, and charges are now pending against both the contractor and the former board president. The real HOA board quickly voted to terminate the shady security contract and issued a public apology to all residents. Fines were reversed, and homeowners were assured this kind of abuse wouldn't happen again. New transparency rules were added, requiring all enforcement actions to go through board vote and be made public. It's not perfect, but it's a start. As for me and my wife, we finally got to enjoy that peaceful weekend at our cabin after clearing away the mess at the end of our driveway. Rick brought over coffee the next morning, joking that we should hang a sign that says "Protected by Chief of Police." We laughed, but deep down, we knew it wasn't funny what almost happened. If there's anything this whole experience taught me, it's this: always trust your gut, know your rights, and never let fake authority push you around. HOA abuse is real, and sometimes it hides behind uniforms and clipboards. But when you shine a light on it, when you stand up and stay calm, truth has a way of winning. Thanks for watching, and stay sharp out there.